What's up guys, Commonwealth Snow here, and in today's video I'm going to be installing and reviewing the Papa West distro, developed by System76. I have made one or two videos on Papa West in the past, both in a positive and a negative light, so I thought I'd show you the installation, what features you might expect when using the OS, as well as the general feel and usability of it. So let's get into it. You can download the ISO from the Papa West website I have loaded here. Now when you do click download, it's a nice little feature I think System76 have put in. They detect what kind of, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card or not, and in this case I do, and it automatically gives you the option to download an ISO with the NVIDIA graphics drivers, which I think is quite nice. It also gives you the option to download a normal one without the drivers, as well as some long-term support ISOs. They have a link to how to create an installation media down here, so that basically means being able to boot the ISO from a USB device, or maybe a DVD if you're into that. It gives you the file size of the ISO, the NVIDIA ISO in particular, and the basic requirements for installing the operating system. Now I've already downloaded the ISO, and I will be installing it in Java VirtualBox. So we'll navigate to our VirtualBox here. Click on a new, we'll call this one Pop OS. We'll leave the machine folder as it is, and we want to change type to Linux, and I think the closest we can get to Pop OS is probably Ubuntu, so we'll click on the Ubuntu 64-bit. Next, we're going to set the memory size to 4096, which is 4 GB of RAM. That should be plenty for our install. We are going to create a virtual hard disk, VirtualBox disk image, and here we have the option between fixed size and dynamically allocated. Now the basic difference between these two is fixed size will give a fixed sized amount of disk space from your host system to the VirtualBox, whereas dynamically allocated will only allocate as much as it needs up to a certain point which you specify on the next page. So I'm going to leave mine as dynamically allocated, but you can choose fixed size, and I do believe fixed size is slightly faster boot times and stuff like that. So, but I'm going to leave mine as dynamically allocated, and I'm going to give this system, I'm going to give it 20 GB. I think 20 GB is just fine for what we need it for. We're going to create the VirtualBox, and now we're going to navigate into settings. We're going to go into system, and we're going to deselect the floppy option, and then we're going to select the hard disk option, put it in the first order. So when you first boot up the virtual machine, it will try and boot from the hard disk. There's nothing there when we first boot it up, so then it will go to the second boot option, which is the optical, which is where we will put the ISO. And when you finish installing the system and you reboot, you do not need to mess with these settings, as it will then be able to boot from the hard disk, which is the first option. We are going to boot a BIOS system, and the basic difference between EFI and BIOS is that EFI is able to use more than 2 TB of storage and have more than 4 partitions on a disk. Processor, we're going to give the system 2 cores. You don't want to give it more than the green area here, as VirtualBox cares more about the cores than the threads on your processor, and you need some cores to power your host system. We're going to navigate to display, we're going to bump up the video memory up to 128 megs, and we're going to select VBox VGA for the graphics controller. It does say invalid settings detected down here, but with VBox VGA you are able to full screen the VirtualBox. We're going to go on storage, we're going to click empty here, and click here, and now we're going to click choose a disk file. Now there's this weird glitch with VirtualBox on Manjaro Linux, I'm not too sure if it's on any other, where I can't actually select anything until I type something in this little search field here. So if your ISO isn't coming up already in this file explorer, you do have to type something within the name field before it lets you click on these icons here. But in my case, I just have mine right here, so that I can click open. And now that's it for setting up the VirtualBox. We'll click OK, and now we can start up the VM. Now we're booted up onto the live ISO, and now we can go through the Pop!OS install. As I've mentioned in a previous video, I have used Pop!OS as a daily driver, and I found it to be alright, though through the weeks and months of me using it, it became more and more unstable. Now the system is recommended for beginner Linux users on the official System76 website, but I found it to be a bit more of an intermediate distro than a beginner distro. But let's not get off topic. There we go. It seems to maximize when you minimize and maximize the window. So we're going to click default here and then click select. And we are going to do a clean install. Now you do get the option to customize your partitions and choose which one you want, but we're going to go for a clean install. Going to select our VBox hard disk that we've allocated, 20 gigabytes. We're going to erase the disk and install. Now you get to choose your username. We'll go Joseph. Then you need to say your password. Straight from the boot up, you do get the option to encrypt your disk, which I think is quite a big positive, especially if you're installing this on a laptop, because you're taking them about with you, and the last thing you'd want is somebody to rob it first of all, and then be able to get access to everything on the disk. So if you are planning on installing this on a laptop, I would recommend encrypting this, going through this option, drive encryption, but in this case we're just installing it in a VirtualBox, so we can click don't encrypt. Now the system's going to go through partitioning the drive, formatting everything and making sure everything is nice for the install. Now like I've said before, this distro is advertised towards beginner Linux users, but they also advertise it towards professionals wanting to use professional programs in Linux, and to quote, not be distracting and to be a very work-focused distro. And when I was daily driving this, I did find it to be quite a work-focused distro. It didn't provide any distractions for me. It was very much work-centralized, but I think that can kind of go for any distro. I think as the user, you make it what you want it to be. You know, it's just what you want to use it for. And like the ISOs, they give you the relevant drivers for the system you want to install it on. So if you want to, you can easily play games like that, because it comes with the NVIDIA proprietary drivers out of the box, so there's no need for doing that on your part. This seems like it's going to take a little while, so I'll be back with you once it's finished configuring the system. Okay, the system has now finished setting up, so now we'll get the option to restart the device and boot into the system. So we'll do that now. Now, like I said before, in the setup of this, we selected hard disk as the first boot option, so there is no need to stop the VM and go into VirtualBox to readjust the boot options, which is very nice. You click on your user account, enter the password, select enter, and boot into the system. Here we go, we're now given a welcome prompt, just like most of the distros nowadays. They do like to give you these welcome prompts. We've got UK selected, we can click next. Now it gives you the option to customize this dock at the bottom. You can choose no dock, dock extends to edges, or dock that doesn't extend to the edges. You can customize this later, as with all Linux distros, so we'll click on this one. I think this one looks a lot cleaner. You get to customize the buttons that show up in the top left, and the date and time and notifications position. I'm going to leave them as they are. Gives us a little bit of information around the general usage of the desktop environment, which is custom built by System76, built on top of the GNOME desktop environment. You can use gestures for easy navigation if you're on a laptop, but we're on a PC. Gives us the option to enable location services, I'm going to leave that off for now. And select our time zone. I'm going to select London. Going to skip connecting our online accounts. And we are all done. We can now start using PopOS in our virtual machine. Now the steps for this are pretty much the same if you're doing it on Metal. So, first impressions, installing this in our VirtualBox. Very clean, very nice, very fresh. Got 4GB of RAM and 2 cores dedicated to this, and it doesn't seem too bad at all. With a nice settings application, giving us loads of different options, including OS upgrade and recovery, which I think is quite nice. This was a fresh download of the PopOS ISO from the official website. Let's open up the terminal here. Let's see how many packages have been installed. Let's see if HTOP's installed. HTOP isn't installed, but we can install it. It gives us the instructions right here. Kudos to them for catering to people who may not necessarily know off by heart the command to install programs through the terminal. But as we'll see in a minute, you do get the option to use the Pop Shop, which is also touted by the developers as being a very noob-friendly and responsive store. Now we've installed HTOP, let's see how many programs we have going. Okay, so out of the bat we are using 1GB of RAM. Out of our 4GB allotted to the system, we have a total of 102 tasks running in the background. Comparing this to other distributions, this is quite a lot. I think Manjaro has between 60 and 70, and I think Linux Mint has around that as well, depending on the desktop environment. But this is definitely up there at on the higher end of the spectrum in terms of how many tasks run in the background straight out of the box. But how many tasks you have running isn't everything, of course. But the real question is, do we have Vim out of the box? We don't have Vim out of the box. Well, that's a shame. Maybe we have Nano. Okay, Nano's out of the box. So like I say, very, very noob friendly. It's been a while since I've used Nano. Okay, so it comes with the Firefox browser, which I think is quite standard for Linux distributions. Nice and fresh. Let's go to the help section and the About Firefox, see what version we have. Okay, we're on version 93. Now I think, at the current moment of recording, I do think Firefox version 94 is out, but it's only come out in the last couple of days, so, you know, that's okay. That is forgivable. It's not immensely out of date like some distributions can be. Okay, let's see how many packages are installed on this system by default. So, out of the box, we've only installed HTOP. See if NeoFetch is installed. NeoFetch isn't installed by default. We shall install that. I mean, everybody's got to have NeoFetch on their system, right? I think that's a given for using a Linux distribution like this nowadays. Let's go for a NeoFetch, and we have 1,750 packages installed by default, including NeoFetch and HTOP. I don't think it's too bad, especially when you take into account the custom GNOME desktop environment they've developed. But it could be better. My Manjaro install came with, I think, around 1,200 packages. So that is quite a few packages less with the KDE Plasma desktop environment. But let's have a look at what type of applications are indeed installed on this system. Alright, okay, you got some basic kind of utilities, text editor. I'm assuming this is going to be gedit. About text editor. Yeah, alright, okay, this is gedit. So, you know, just a nice little text editor, works just fine. Without going into the terminal, of course. Got to be noob friendly. What other kind of programs do we have? Alright, we've got LibreOffice by default. I think that's quite nice. I do use LibreOffice. Got a contacts application, so maybe you can hook up a call system to it, use your phone, work from home, that type of thing. Then in the system folder down here, we have a couple nice little system applications here. Get to see what disks you have installed, and a nice little GUI here, which I think is quite nice. You also, I think I also saw their disk usage analysis, which is quite nice. This gives you a nice little diagram on where the files are on your system and how big they are. Okay, I think this is quite a cool, nice little program. Gives you a visual representation of your programs on the entire system. Obviously, this is a fresh install, so there's not going to be a lot on here. But as you install more programs, more and more will be added to this, which I think is very nice, a very nice touch. And we also have this utilities here. We have a USB flash program, image viewer, document viewer, archive manager for zip files and stuff like that. Use the scroll wheel to change page in this folder. Videos, screenshot, you know, just some basic stuff, that document scanner. Nice stuff to get started with. We also have Geary, which I think is an email client, kind of like Thunderbird Mail. So that's nice. Nice to have the option anyway. And a weather application here, along with HTOP, which is what we installed through the terminal. So overall, not too bad at all. Let's navigate to the pop shop. Let's see what's going on here. Now, I think most beginner friendly distributions have their own little store type thing. So Manjaro has Pamac, Pop! OS has the Pop Shop, Linux Mint has a package manager GUI type thing as well. So this is to be expected, and it comes up with all the packages on your system that need to be updated on top. As we can see, Firefox needs updating, as we found out before. I'm assuming it'll be updating to version 94. Comes up with some components in the operating system that need to be updated. And then below that we have our drivers. It's coming up with some VirtualBox drivers, as I am running this in a VirtualBox. And underneath we have all of the packages installed on your system. The thing I do like about this is it gives you a kind of a GUI into what programs you have installed on your system, and it also gives you the ability to click on the package and you get to uninstall it, and you can see how it is installed. So this is a Debian package, and then you can open it through here as well, which is quite nice. It's a very nice interface, nice and clean. You got little categories down here for packages you can install, media production system. I'm not too sure if I like these kind of categories. From my experience, they seem to list very obscure packages on here. But you know, it's alright for newbies when they're getting used to using Linux and what kind of packages they have to offer. So we'll close that. And the main thing I wanted to talk about with my review on Pop! OS is indeed the desktop environment. Now, this desktop environment is unique to Pop! OS. It is based on GNOME, but the Pop! OS version of GNOME also includes a sort of tiling manager, which you can toggle by going up to the top right here and then clicking on this icon here. Now, this isn't normally on GNOME, but on this version we have tile windows. We can enable and disable that. So if we enable it now, our windows are now tiled. So if we click on Firefox here, it will automatically full screen onto our system. It's leaving a gap down here because we chose to have the dock centered and to get rid of all of the unnecessary space. But what you can do with the dock is you can go to, I think it's in here, but what you can do with this dock at the bottom is you can make it so it will disappear when your mouse cursor is not over it, so it's kind of hidden. And when you bring your mouse back down, it pops up over the window, so you never have this gap down here. I'm sure if you look around in the settings for a bit, you'll be able to find it. I mean, I found it, so it can't be that difficult. Or a quick Google, a quick DuckDuckGo even, or something like that, and you'll be able to do that. But if we open another window, like the terminal, normally what would happen is, it would open a window over the Firefox window, something like that. But here, it splits it in two. So now we have both Firefox and the terminal taking up an even amount of space. If we open up File Explorer, it will take up even more. Now you can change the way these kind of lay out. So here we have the file that's taken up half of the space of what the terminal used to have. You can change that through navigating through the windows with the super key. As you can see, I'm changing my selected window through holding the super key and clicking through the arrow keys. So, you know, type in here, blah, 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 and then you can go over to the Windows key and type in some of that. It's very nice. You can quit a window through pressing super key and Q. Now close the window. And if you ever want to do something, you're not too sure how to do it, you can click on here and then you can go to View All Shortcuts. And then this will open up a window telling you all of the different shortcuts about what you can do. It's pretty nice. But yeah, so you can navigate through the Windows key. You want to maximize Firefox, super key and M to maximize, then super key and M to minimize it. It's all very nice. And another feature that I really appreciate with this tiling manager is, let's say you have a couple Firefox tabs open, but you only want Linux, right? So we have Linux here, but you want to see this. You want to, you know, copy something and compare it to another web page. So what you can do is you'd normally drag this, right, and then you kind of have this. You'd have to kind of jumble it all about and try and get it the way you want it to. But the Tiler Manager has a special feature for things like this. So what you can do is you can click on your main window. Let's choose just one, and what you can do now is press super key and S, like that. Now you have this orange bar on the top. Now this is kind of your tabs within a window. So what we can do now is hold mouse cursor on this and drag this until it takes up all of the space that the tabs will take up in total. And there we go. We now have our Linux web page here, and then we can just simply click on this or use the Windows key and arrow keys to cycle through it. And now we have essentially two windows taking up the amount of space of one. So you can easily just swap through like that, and you can have as many as you want. So we can drag the File Explorer here, and it will then light up the whole desktop, indicating that this new section, this new selection of tabs will take up the whole desktop. So now we have all of them on this little bar here: Linux, Mozilla, Firefox, and Home, and we can navigate that through the super keys, which is very, very nice. There are many different shortcuts you can choose from in this. I only ever memorized a portion, but yeah, you can really see how many you can choose from. There are quite a few. If you get to know all these, you can really make full use of this desktop environment. But let's say, for example, you're doing some maths, right? So what you're going to do, you're going to click on your super key just once, and it comes up with this nice little search bar, which is very, very nice. You can search up any program on the system with this. If you want to go to the pop shop, type in pop, you got pop shop, USB flash and stuff like that. Now let's say you wanted to open calculator. You know, you want to just do some calculations. Click on that. Oh, would you look at this? The calculator has full screened as well. Now, I'm not sure about you, but this does look a little bit silly. You have the numbers down here, then you have the result here. All this space is wasted, right? Doesn't look too nice. So what you can do is click on your Tiler Manager up here, and then you can click on this button here, Floating Window Exceptions. Now this will essentially make it so whatever program you choose isn't included in the Tiling Manager. So we can click on this here, and then we can click add exceptions by selecting currently running applications and windows. So we can click on select here, and then it comes up with all the windows we have open, and all we need to do now is simply click on the window we don't want to be included in the Tiling Window Manager. So we have calculator here, click on calculator, and you can either click on this app's windows or current window only. So what this means is if we click on current window only, it will only be this instance of the calculator, right? So when we close it and then open up calculator again, it's going to revert back to being maximized and included within the window manager. But if we click on this app's windows, as we'll do now, and close this, calculator down here is, oh no, here it is. It is now a floating tile and is not included within the tiling manager. Right, so whenever you need to do something, just go down here, click on calculator, where all of your open programs come up on the bottom here, and here you go. Just normal floating window. And then when you close it, open calculator back up again. Apologies for this top left bit, that is my host system. We can come here, type in calculator, and then there you go. It's a floating window. So all in all, very, very useful and very, very nice and tidy. So in conclusion, I think this is a decent operating system. Now, like I've said previously, I have used this as a daily driver for around 2 months, and I found it to be pretty decent for the stuff I needed to do on it. So I did play some video games through Steam, I played Minecraft, had some Technic Launch going with some Java files, it all worked fine, but over the 2 months of me using it, it became more and more unstable, and then I was unable to update packages. I got a bunch of errors, fetch errors, repository errors, and then eventually my system started crashing at random intervals. It generally became quite a pain to fix it. I couldn't find any solutions online. I tried to read the man pages on the errors, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So in the end, I just hopped over to Manjaro Linux, as you can see with this top bar, my host system. And Manjaro has been working fine for me within the past week, though time will tell if it goes back to the fate of my Pop! OS install, at which point it's probably something I'm doing wrong. But if I stuck with Pop! OS, I'd have probably fixed it and it would have probably been fine. So yeah, all in all, I think it's pretty decent as a Linux distribution. I think it's alright for first time Linux users as well, though I would recommend Linux Mint for absolute beginners just because it seems to be more stable and it has a more relatable desktop environment that's comparable to the Windows desktop environment, for example. But yeah, overall not too bad. Just be careful of what you install and what kind of packages you update. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this installation/review. If you did, please make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy stuff like this. We have a bunch of Linux content on this channel that I hope you enjoy. But yes, solid operating system. I wouldn't mind if it didn't break on me. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day, everyone. Stay safe.